Again for coming tonight. We're going to bring the flags up and the service flags, and then talk a little bit about veterans, then hear from Bruce Barger. So I'm looking forward to that. So first we'll be starting off with bringing in the United States flag. And so it's customary when the flag comes in, everybody stands up and turn to the flag and face the flag as it walks in. So as the flag walks in, you turn and watch it until it comes up, and then we'll place the flag up for the Star Spangled Banner, our national anthem. It's customary for civilians to put your hand over your heart. So I did some research tonight because they changed it on when do veterans salute or not salute. So it used to be you didn't salute if you were unless you were in uniform, and they changed that in 2008 that veterans can salute when they're in civilian clothes. But then there's discussion, well, do you salute indoors? Usually you don't salute unless you're wearing a hat. We call it your cover. Unless you're wearing a cover, you don't salute. I called my old retired sergeant major I served with, and he says, I don't know, that's a good question. And everything I could see online said, the first note of the national anthems, render a salute. So all of us veterans, that's what we're going to do tonight. And if I'm wrong, somebody come up and tell me afterwards, hey, you missed the boat on that. We're not outside. So veterans, when the national anthem starts, will salute. Everybody else will just put their hand on their heart. So we'll have our veterans. If Jesse's ready back there, okay. So if everybody please stand for the entry of our national flag. That was Sergeant Jesse Bakhorn, Air Force veteran. Thanks, Jesse. And next we'll have the United States Army flag carried by Army veteran Specialist Adam Hoffman. 1 minute, please. Let's start over on that. My bad. But everybody, please take your seats. I jumped the gun here. Otherwise, you're going to be staying a long time. But I would like, when your service song, if you're a veteran, when your service song is played, please stand up. So as the Army song starts, if you're an Army veteran, please stand back up, but then you can sit back down when we go to the next service. So we'll restart, do a mulligan on that. And carrying the Army flag is Specialist Adam Hoffman. So Army veterans, if you'd stand. All right, Army veterans, you can take your seats. And then next, carrying the United States Navy flag is Navy veteran, Second Class Petty Officer, MM2 Tyler Lee. And next, carrying the United States Marine Corps flag is Marine veteran Corporal Doug Beckett. And next, carrying the United States Air Force flag is Air Force veteran Sergeant Dan Swartz. And then last but not least, carrying the United States Coast Guard flag is Coast Guard veteran, Second Class Petty Officer Bill Phillips. guys. You go ahead and go down. Thanks. So the last time we did this again was 2019, and since then there's a new service, the Space Force. I should not assume that there's not a Space Force veteran here. Is there any Space Force veterans? All right. So we need to get another flag for that, and who knows, maybe next year we'll have a Space Force veteran here. I've never heard the Space Force song either, so that'd be interesting. So I'd like to honor veterans by category, if we could, quick. World War II veterans. I don't assume we don't have any World War II veterans here tonight. I went online and looked, and this is from the National World War II Museum. It's saying right now there's 119,550 World War II veterans that are still alive. Last I had heard, quite a few years ago, they were dying at the pace of about $1,000 or $1,000 a day, I believe. So it's down to 119,550. It won't be long till we won't have any more World War II veterans. And you think about really the greatest generation, when we nowadays deploy, we know when we're coming home. Back then, they deployed, and remember that song, we won't be back till it's over there. They went, and they did not know when they were coming back. And so we owe a debt of gratitude to those veterans. Again, not many left. And I can tell by the age of the veterans we had tonight that we don't have any Korean veterans. Bill, you're not a Korean veteran, are you, Bill? Yeah. So Korean veterans, I think most Korean veterans would be around close to 90 now. Called the Forgotten War. 6.8 million soldiers or airmen, Navy, and served in the armed forces in the Korean War. And last I looked on that, they didn't have any current numbers, but there's a little over a million of those of our veterans from Korea left, and so those veterans will be losing soon also. I went and then checked for Vietnam veterans. They said 2.7 million veterans served in Vietnam, and there's about 850,000 Vietnam veterans left still with us of the 2.7 million that served. So if you would, if you're a Vietnam veteran, would you please stand? And we owe a debt of gratitude to the Vietnam veterans. You know, when my son came back from his mid-tour leave when he went to Iraq, he came in the airport in Atlanta and got a standing ovation. People in the airport stood up, standing ovation as him. And so since 9/11 as a country, I think we got that right. But we did not have it right when our Vietnam veterans served. And they were told, don't fly back home in uniform. You hear stories of Vietnam veterans being spit at and called names. So I owe, in my heart, we have a special debt of gratitude to our Vietnam veterans that served and were not welcomed like they should have been. So thank you to all the Vietnam veterans. Next, I have veterans that served. I'm going to call this the Cold War period, which I served in. So some of you now are going to go from one time frame to another. But if you started the Cold War, from what I researched, was started in 1961 to 1991. So if you served during the Cold War from 1961 to 1991, would you stand up, please? All right. Please take your seats. And that's, I think, a war that being ready and being a deterrent was huge, right? And that service, even though it may not have been in a combat zone, to be part of the military at that time to protect us is very important. So then that takes us to 91. Let's go from 91 up through Desert Storm. How many served up from 91 to Desert Storm? Thank you for your service. And then I'm going to call it, let's go from 91 and later. Really, the war on global terror would start at 9/11, so 9/11/2001. But if you served since 1991 all the way up to today through the global war on terror, would you please stand? All right, so thank you again, all of the veterans, for your service. There's one group that we've not recognized yet that we need to do. If you are a spouse of a veteran, would you please stand? So thank you. Looks like all ladies that are spouses. You know, there's never a convenient time. There was times when I was gone, the dog would have puppies. When I was overseas for my deployment, I had a daughter graduate high school. Sue had to take care of everything. Invariably, when something goes wrong at home, it's when us guys are gone. And so a lot of times, I think that the ladies have it harder. When we're gone, we got a bunch of guys looking out for us, right? Where the ladies often are home alone. I remember sitting in Sunday school class, this is years ago, and we're asking for prayer requests, and one of the ladies says, "Would you please pray for me? My husband's going to be gone for the next week." And she was real concerned. And I know for her that was a concern. And my wife Sue just looked at me and smiled, you know, to know that. So thank you for all you ladies that supported us, that served, and really serving the country you guys did by supporting us and taking care of things at home. So I'd like to do is introduce our speaker tonight. I asked Bruce to give me an introduction, and he was quite modest. He didn't want to go through all of his awards or anything, so he said our speaker is someone that most of you know here. Bruce Barger is a 20-year retired Navy veteran who spent time on 3 different aircraft carriers. He wanted to share some of his experiences with us a few years ago, but due to COVID, he put his presentation on hold until now. So I think there's a lot more to Bruce than what he's letting on here. But Bruce, would you come and share with us what you have on your heart? And let's welcome Bruce.
Before I get started, I'd like to also thank Phil and his wife for the marvelous job they did in the decorating and setting up for this program tonight. They pretty much did this all on their own, so we really thank you for them. So let's give them a round of applause. How about now? Okay. The meals, everybody brought in food. There was plenty of food. I think everybody got their fill. So again, for all the ladies and everyone involved in the food, thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause too. It's great. As Phil mentioned earlier, I served in the Navy for 20 years. It was actually 20 years and 29 days, but I kind of lost track of the minutes on that. But you gotta get the idea. I was a Naval Aviation Hydraulics Technician aboard the USS Ranger for a cruise, the USS Kitty Hawk for part of a cruise, and the Eisenhower for a couple-week detachment. During that time, aboard the Ranger, I was in Vietnam area, where I was a plane captain, F-4 Phantom aircraft. Some of you may be familiar with those aircraft or not. Here's a picture of one of my airplanes. If you ever want to see one of these, give you an idea how old I am, I walked down the Naval Air Museum in Pensacola, Florida a few years ago, and as I walked into the entrance of the museum, there sat one of the airplanes I actually worked on. Whoa, kind of old. If that'll make you feel old, I'm actually older than Google. As a plane captain, my job was on the aircraft was to keep it clean, Followed salt water. Actually, we had to use hand cleaner to take care of that. Right in the cockpit, I had to be with that airplane anytime it was getting ready to move, just in case when the tow bar on it they turn to 90 degrees, and if the ship was on a list at all, it could snap. So we had to make sure we had be able to apply the brakes on it and keep it from rolling off the side of the ship. Also, anytime the aircraft wasn't being moved, we actually had to put tie-down chains on it to make sure that it was secure. We had to have a minimum of 6 tie-down chains on each aircraft during normal calm seas, 12 during rough seas. So to give you an idea, I have one. This is one of them. I used to carry 6 of these on my back. I'm glad I'm not doing it these days. It's heavy. During my time in service, I was not a Christian at all. I did go through catechism training so I could be married to Kathy when I got back, returned back. But while deployed, I had a couple different instances I went through. I'd like to share a couple of these with you. First of all, you need to get a little education on a flight deck operation. Here we can see, this is the USS Ranger. We have the bow of the ship over in front here, and of course the angle deck. This is where they would come in, land, and so forth. Now, the first incident I had, they parked me right up where this plane was, right at the very bow, and they couldn't get me any closer to the water. So I'm sitting in there, and in the meantime, all these other airplanes are coming in, and they was lining up right alongside here, right alongside of me, on both sides of the ship. Also, I was sitting in the cockpit, really bored out of my mind, so it's going to be a while before I have to move. And so I was kind of sitting there, half asleep. And all of a sudden, I hear a noise on a loudspeaker from the air boss, because it's fire, fire, fire on the flight deck. And okay, I'm awake now. And I'm trying to look back, and I couldn't see because it was just the angle I was on. All of a sudden, he said, aircraft 102's on fire. Holy cow, that's in front of my shipmates. Aircraft 103's on fire. That's another one of my shipmates. I'm still training around trying to figure out what's going on. Right in front of my aircraft, right in front of by the nose, there was a crash crew sitting there in a crash truck, sitting there with their feet propped up on the dash, just sitting there talking away. So I'm trying to see behind me, and I was like, see all this smoke going all over the place, and they're still sitting there. So finally, I got out of the airplane, walked over, and said, what are you guys doing? You know, we got a fire going on. They kind of looked at me like I was a complete idiot. He says, hey, we're having a drill. That's a mass casualty drill. I went, oh. So I meekly walked back to my airplane, get back to the cockpit, and kind of mind my own business. Another time it was on number 1 catapult, which is on the starboard side over here. Right where that little notch is where my workstation was, and there's a catwalk along the side of there. I was standing in the catwalk waiting for one of the aircraft to take off. It was an F-4 Phantom, had 12 500-pound bombs on it. When they take off, they jerk a little bit before they shoot off the deck. When he jerked, a 500-pound bomb dropped on that deck. Yeah, so it's like from here to the wall from me, and I'm like, okay, the water's over here, the bomb's over here, there's no place to go. They have a propeller that spins on the front of them as they descend that actually arms them. There was another aircraft that was going aft, blowing its exhaust right on that propeller, and it's just spinning like crazy. So great, now what do we do? It's finally an ordnanceman who deals with ordnance on the ship, walked over to it, and he grabbed a hold of the propeller, stopped it from turning, took a pair of wire cutters, and cut the fuse, unscrewed the fuse, threw it off the side. We rolled the 500-pound bomb off the side of the ship. It was a dead bomb at that point. Kind of get an idea now what kind of dangerous it is on the flight deck during flight operations. They used to tell us that during flight operations, your life expectancy was about 14 minutes during operations. Between 1948 and 1988, 8,500 men lost their lives aboard the flight deck, either blown off the side, sucked in intakes, walking through propellers. Wind speed on that during flight operations is about 34 miles an hour. We'll always turn the ship into the wind and then speed up to get their speed up. The aircraft launch go from 0 to about 170 miles an hour in just seconds. When they're landing, they come in from 150 miles an hour to 0 in seconds. The actual catch and resting gear wire, if that resting gear wire was a snap, that was where some people lost their lives from that wire. With so much tension on it, would just cut through anything in its path. Most aircraft have an ejection seat, or jet aircraft have ejection seats on them. January 21st, 1973. I was working on the flight deck as usual. My aircraft had just taken off. I was going to head back to my workstation. I heard a loud screech going on. So I turned around just as I watched an A3 aircraft I do have one here. There he is. It's one of the A3s. I just watched one of these. He was on this, one of the catapults on the angle deck. And the screech of noise was actually the aircraft taking off. One of the resting gear cables that was attached to the aircraft snapped, and slammed the resting gear forward, pulled the nose gear up underneath the airplane. The plane went off the deck, nose first, into the water. The official report on that states that the results of its overdue inspection on the aircraft, and as a result, one of the catapult hooks failed, causing the catapult to slam to end travel. The aircraft didn't have enough speed, so it went in the water, nose first. The aircraft was damaged beyond from the tremendous explosion and the catapult impact. There was speculation that the crew did sustain injuries prior to entering the water. Now, this aircraft did not have ejection seats. They didn't have a chance to get out of that airplane. So I ran over the side of the ship as fast as I could. We have a life vest on, and it's got strobe lights on it. So everybody kind of grabbed the strobe light and was going to throw it over the side to mark where the plane went in, because try to stop an aircraft carrier in seconds. It don't happen. So they mark it with strobe lights. We also have a helicopter in the air called an Angel. That's always in case somebody gets blown over the side, or in a case like this. So the helicopter looked around where those strobe lights were to find the pilots. Hopefully they got out of the airplane. Only thing found from there was one helmet. The crew on the airplane: Commander Keith Christopherson, Lieutenant Commander Charles T. Parker, AT-2 Richard Weir. Let's go forward about 15 years. During Veterans Day one year, Kathy and I went down to Olive Garden for dinner or lunch. I believe it was dinner. And of course, I was in my uniform like this. Kathy says she loves a guy in a uniform, especially a sailor. I think she's partial to me. During dinner, a guy walked up to me and thanked me for my service and boldly said to me, "You got PTSD." I was kind of shocked at hearing that. I thought, what? His tears started running down my face. He said I should go to the VA and get checked out on it, but I didn't. I thought he's crazy. Why would I have PTSD? I was aboard an aircraft carrier off the coast of Vietnam. I was not in combat like a lot of you guys were. Why would I have PTSD? So that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight. So after I retired out of the Navy, I went to work at Amway, and I worked there 23 years. And during that time, my brother Chuck invited us to church at a men's breakfast at Jimmy's Grill, and some of you may remember where that was at, south of Lowell. They made wonderful food, and I thought, who could pass up one of Jimmy's Grill's breakfasts? So I went along. As all these guys are sitting around this table talking, and the pastor said, "Hey, let's kind of share with each other when you became a believer." I thought, uh-oh. And at this point, I'm not a believer. So finally, they come to me and I said, well, I'm not a believer, but I'm on the fence. So Kathy and I started attending church at Friendship Country Chapel down by Lowell on a regular basis. And one time the pastor had an altar call and I accepted the Lord as my personal Savior. Once I got out of the Amway, I had a lot of time on my hand, and I become quite depressed and emotional. Seemed like little things would send me spiraling deeper and deeper into depression, and I didn't want to be around other veterans. You show me a veteran, Buck. In fact, side story a little bit. We was at Sears one day, and we was in this one aisle, I don't know, looking at shoes or something, and these two other Vietnam veteran guys were wearing pyramid hats. Excuse me. They had their hats on, and I looked over there, and they were talking about where they served in Vietnam, whereabouts where they were, what they did, and so forth. I couldn't get away from them fast enough. I told Kathy, come on, we gotta get out of here. Why? Just come on. I didn't feel worthy to be called Vietnam veteran because I was on the coast, off the coast of Vietnam. I was not on land, like a lot of you were. I don't like watching movies about Vietnam. Any other World War II, whatever, that's fine. But don't give me a Vietnam movie. I feel real guilty about not being in the jungle where most of the movies were about. I often wonder whatever happened to those three guys on that A-3 aircraft. Were they Christians? What about their families? Were they married? How long did they live in that plane? Or did they get out? Are they entombed in that plane to this day? Why did God spare me? Why did God spare me? I joined the Navy, or military, to serve my country until death. So here I am. Did I fail not by giving up my life? Then someone shared a verse with me. He did. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. Oh. So what's my plans? What does God want me to do? Am I feeling what God wants me to do since He protected me, even when I wasn't a Christian? So I decided it was finally time to go to VA and get checked out. So I finally went in for my medical physical, and I explained to the doctor what was going on. So he got a hold of a psychologist for me, and he says, we're going to meet this psychologist right now. So he did. And I was diagnosed at that point with PTSD. What is PTSD? Post-traumatic stress disorder. First, there's a lot of people that suffer from PTSD. It does not affect just the military. It could be anyone experiencing a traumatic event. It could be from multiple different things. I mean, every one of us in here have different things it could be witnessed. It could be a car crash. It could be sexual assault, witnessing a shooting, witnessing a plane crash, the Twin Towers in New York. The list goes on and on and on, and every one of our veterans in here have a different one. Or even some of you non-veterans. All these affect different people in different ways. So I went through a program called Cognitive Processing Therapy as an outpatient for 10 weeks at VA. It was hard because that guy made me relive that A3 experience every week, over and over and over again. Before that, there was no way you would have caught me up here talking about it. Here are a few things I did discover over the past 10 years in counseling I've been in. As patients with PTSD tend to speak in a flatter speech, less articulation of the tongue and lips, and more monotone voice. Aha. That's how that guy at that restaurant recognized my problem. Some of the different symptoms, intrusive thoughts. This is probably perhaps the best known symptom. Nightmares, avoiding reminders of the event. Memory loss, negative thoughts about self and the world, lack of concentration, focus, self-isolation, feeling discontent, distant, angry, irritable, reduced interest in favorite activities, sometimes suicide, and could be others. PTSD episodes are characterized by feeling the fear of panic along with a flashback of sudden or vivid memories of intense traumatic event in the past. Mine is a lot of guilt. Why wasn't I on the airplane? Why wasn't I in Vietnam if I'm a Vietnam vet? Some of these memories are often accompanied by sensory experiences, visions and sounds, and even smells. Such has been even happening at the present time. I went up to see my son Andy up north. There's a gas station by, I think it's 127 we used to stop at, bathroom break. I finally told Kathy, I cannot stop here anymore, go to the bathroom. In the bathroom, there had this fan or something going on in the ceiling that give me the same exact sounds of an E-2 Hawkeye aircraft aboard that flight deck. It just drove me right up a wall. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. It could be perceiving immediate danger. Your mind goes into a state of alarm, or hearing races. You sweat a lot, breath speeds up. Feeling all-consuming, intense, and often debilitating. That's why I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but all you veterans, sometimes some of us hate fireworks or loud bangs, unexplained noises. This can go on and on and on. So how do we break from these? Well, take a deep breath, which I've been doing up here. Talk yourself down. Sometimes that works, sometimes it don't. Get moving. I'm stuck here. Connect with others. My wife's been a great support there. Manage your PTSD through healthy living, whatever that may be in your life. Again, everybody has their own way. Some of the triggers, and like I said, I try to avoid Vietnam vets' hats, especially if I hear them talking about what they did on land in Vietnam. I have come to, there used to be, you hear them talking, they come over to me and say, oh yeah, we did this and this, we were denying, we were at this particular spot. Where were you? And I says, I was on an aircraft carrier off the coast of Vietnam. You know what the reply was? Oh. End of conversation. I felt about that tall. Now I've changed my answer a little bit. It says I was on an aircraft carrier off the coast of Vietnam, providing air support for your troops on the ground. At least I feel like I was doing something for the war. Self-care. I still get nervous when I'm in a crowded area, restaurants, or even functions with a lot of people. One Sunday, Kathy and I said, let's sit up front in the church. So right here in the front row. I have no idea what that pastor said. because everybody behind me was staring at me, wondering why I was up there. How many of them had guns? And that's what kind of stuff was going through my mind. I just started shaking. It's like, I can't do this. So he's in the back now. Practice of mindfulness. Sometimes my counselor said, hey, if you get in a situation like that, focus on one particular thing. I may look at maybe a certain light, not all of them, just pick on one particular light and focus on that. Or look at something, a picture on a wall, and focus on that, try to get my mind off what's going on around me. Seek professional help. Folks, as mentioned before, VA, Veterans Administration, has been a huge help in my life over the last few years. Kathy can attest to that one. I encourage anyone here that think they might have PTSD, seek help. Don't bottle it up. And you don't have to be a veteran. It could be almost anything that you experience. Talk to your pastor. Again, if it wasn't not for God's grace and the help I received and continue to receive, there's no way I'd be up here talking to you guys. In fact, I'd have left the room when he started talking PTSD. I'd have left. So it brings me to another scripture verse. Philippians 4, 6, and 7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guide your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. That helps a lot. Remember Paul Harvey? Anybody remember Paul Harvey? And the rest of the story. And the rest of the story I have for you. Excuse me. It's about 4 years ago, I signed up to go on an honor flight to Washington, D.C., because I'd never been to the monuments in D.C. before. And it was something my counselor and I talked about. He says, you really should go to the Vietnam Wall. Oh, yeah, I should. Someday. No, you really should go. So I signed up for it, but unfortunately, COVID hit. So I just kind of, whatever. Last month, I got an opportunity to go finally on an honor flight. Any other vets in here ever been on an honor flight? If you haven't, you need to go. It is really, really awesome. Number one thing, you're going to get a welcome home that you well deserve. But when I went on this honor flight, they said I had to have a guardian. So I kind of thought, who am I going to take? Thought about a couple of people here from church, talked about some friends of mine. Father Kathy says, what about your son, Andy? Yeah, that's cool. He'd never been there either. So that's Andy and I, we went to World War II Museum first, or Monuments first, and we went over, and the next stop was the Vietnam, Korea, and Lincoln Memorial, all kind of clustered right together. So we get off the bus and we start walking towards the Vietnam Memorial. Well, you can't see it from the street because it's kind of buried down, it's almost level with the ground. So we kind of come around the end, and I stopped before I seen the memorial. I stopped, and I told Andy, I says, you know what? I feel real guilty about my name not being on that wall. Why didn't I die to protect my country? Why is my name not on this wall? And he put a new perspective on things for me at that point right then. And then I look over here in the crowd and I see my daughter here too with her family. He said, what about me? What about Mom? What about Angela? We wouldn't exist if you died. That hit me right in the heart. I'll never, ever forget that. Then we went to the Naval Museum, the memorial, and this was fastened on the wall, big bold letters. What does it say? I, Bruce Dwayne Barger, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of officers appointed over me, according to the regulations of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. Nowhere does it say I had to die for my country. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Bruce, for sharing with us. Thanks for your service. And I know that wasn't necessarily easy for you, so thank you for sharing that in your history. So Pastor Randy was going to come up and close the night. He's home sick in bed. So one thing that he would want to tell you is here at Faith Baptist Church, we love to support any veterans. If you're a veteran, even if you're not a veteran family, if you don't have a local church that you're attending to, please come out and visit with us. We'd love to have you worship with us. There's other veterans that attend here. Church can be like a patrol base, or for younger guys, like a forward operating base, a FOB. You need to come back in to a place where people care about you, will pray for you, and recharge your batteries. This can be a place to help with that. So if you're not attending a church, we'd love to have you join us and worship with us and be part of our church family. So I'll close in prayer. We'll go back across the hall for dessert. Veterans go through first, and families and kids. Sorry about that, Andrea. So we need kids to go through with their veteran, and then stay around and visit and enjoy some dessert. So let's close in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for an evening that we could come together in fellowship and give Thanksgiving. Thank you for all the veterans that are here, for their families. Thank you for our country. Pray that you'll be with the members of our service that are a member of our armed services that are serving right now. Please protect them and their families. And we love you and appreciate all you've done for us. In Jesus' name, amen.